So let's make our way down onto our backs. And we're going to come into a Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together. And if you are looking for a little bit of extra comfort, then you might want to support underneath your thighs so that it's not too much of a stretch initially. And then you could take away any props if you needed to, or you felt like you wanted to after a while. And perhaps let's just land our hands on our belly. So left palm on top of right, spreading the shoulders, elbows extending. If it's comfortable for you, lightly close your eyes. If not, you can just soften your gaze. And just have a sense of the breath moving towards and away from the palms of your hands. So taking your attention away from the heat of the head, down into your body. And underneath your hands is not only your digestive system and various other organs, but also your enteric nervous system, so your second brain. Sometimes a little more trustworthy than our heads. So I've been giving myself a little abdominal massage every so often, especially if you haven't been so active or you've been active in a slightly different way and the digestive system might either be a little bit overactive if there's anxiety or sometimes a little bit sluggish. So let's just start off with that. So with still the left hand on top of the right, take the hands just above the pubic bone and slide them over towards the right hip bone. And then up to the right side of the lower abdomen. This is your ascending colon. Across the belly, just around and underneath the navel. And then down to the left side of the belly, the descending part of your colon, which then goes underneath the organs towards the lower part of your expulsion, the colon there. And then you can do that a few more times, just a circular motion around the lower belly. In this direction, this is the direction of peristaltic activity. And notice if you find any places where you might notice little pockets of wind, little places that are a little bit more uncomfortable. It might just be really lovely to be massaging the belly. Slightly grounding effect. And notice also if you have any resistance to do this, if you feel uncomfortable touching parts of your own body. Just maybe exploring a little bit, if that's the case, your relationship with this part of yourself. And then when you've had enough of this, let's maybe take our hands onto the center of the chest at the heart space. Could be both hands or one hand. Just feeling into the energetic quality of your heart as it is right now and breathing space around this area so that there's space for everything. And then taking your hands into a prayer position and placing the flats of your thumbs on your forehead. And you might want to do just a few gentle sweeping downward motions there towards the third eye, calming the frontal lobe of the brain. And just making sure that the chin and the forehead are aligned. If the chin is higher and the forehead, then the energy is moving up into the cerebral cortex, and it's quite sympathetic in nature. So we're just calming, softening down the excitation of the mind a little bit. Great, and then release your arms down by your sides, palms facing up towards the ceiling. See if you can have an awareness of both palms simultaneously. Tender hands, tender heart. Let's now just still in this position, and if you have props underneath your thighs, you might want to take them away. Just give yourself a little bit more of an opening into the groins and the inner thighs. Flex the feet so the tips of the heels stay touching. So soles of the feet come apart, and press the outer edges of your feet down into the mat so the inner ankle bones lift. Left hand rests on your left pelvic bone. Draw your right knee towards your armpit, and just take the hand around the outside of the knee and onto the front of the kneecap or knee joint. And start to pulse that leg. So you're going to pull the right thigh towards you and then let it spring back. Thigh slightly outside of the body. Like a little hinge joint here. Keep the breath just flowing naturally, facial muscles soft. Keep both feet flexed, which will protect your knee joints. And then take your right elbow to the floor and support underneath the right thigh with the right hand like a little shelf. Start to stretch the right leg out as you inhale. Doesn't have to straighten completely. Exhale, heel to sit bone. And again, inhaling, following the length of your own breath, exhale. So one continuous movement. And then stretching the leg out, start to rotate the foot. So some big deliberate circles of the foot in space. And then in the opposite direction. And maybe for the last inhalation here, you could reach the inner and outer edges of the heels away a little bit more without forcing. And then raise the left knee, left foot comes to the floor, right ankle crosses over, square pose. Each hand on its respective thigh, so right hand on right thigh, left hand onto the left thigh. Press the thigh bones forward so the elbows might straighten. Have a sense of drawing the pelvis off the lower back so the waist lengthens, chin slightly towards the throat. And then keeping the tailbone anchored, so a little bit of resistance, pick the left foot off the floor, thread the needle, right hand through the hole, taking a hold of the back of your thigh. Lovely. Right foot stays flexed, left foot can be floppy. Maybe the right elbow is just there to help keep the thigh moving away from you. And press the left thigh into your interlaced hands. Press it forward so you might notice a little bit more space between the lower back and the floor. Let's rock over towards the right hip. Left hip lifts a little bit. Now there might be a little bit of wobbling. You might even fall all the way over. Until you find, perhaps even just for a moment, that little sweet spot where you're balanced. Notice the sensation of stretch and how it changes. So left hip slightly off the earth, and then roll back to the center. Rock over to the left a little bit. You might wobble, you might find that balance, lose it again. Come back through to the center. And hug that left thigh towards you a little bit closer so the lower back may flatten, tailbone curls up a little bit. And as you bring the tailbone back to the floor, take an inhale, stretch your left leg up towards the sky. Spread the toes. Imagine you were trying to press the three corners of your feet up towards the ceiling. And just notice naturally here if your toes are turning out a little bit or not. So we're not trying to force the toes to be pointing towards the forehead here. Just notice how your femur head naturally sits in the socket. Release the right ankle off the left thigh. Hug the right knee in towards you and lower the left leg down so you're in a kind of a lunge position, a supine lunge position. Thigh towards you. Soften the elbows, throat, jaw. And then hugging your left knee in also. Drop the feet to the floor, drop your knees out to the sides. Excellent. Draw the feet away from one another. So you're going to flex the feet, lift the inner ankles. Right hand comes onto the hip bone. Left knee comes towards your armpit. Take the hand around the front of the knee and start to pulse that leg. Pulse the thighs slightly outside of the body. Making a little shelf with your left elbow on the floor. Support somewhere underneath the thigh. Begin to stretch the left leg out as you inhale. Exhale, heel to sit bone. Right hand on hip bone is just preventing you from rolling over too much. Try not to look at that leg as it extends. The leg is heavy. It may drag you over. And where you look, your attention goes. That's the way the body moves. There's a directionality and an intention to your gaze. Stretching the leg out. Start to rotate the foot. One direction. And then in the other direction. Extend out to the inner and outer edge of the heel. Last breath before raising the right knee, pointing the right knee towards the ceiling, right foot onto the floor, left ankle crosses over. Each hand onto its respective thigh, pressing the thigh bones forward. The shoulders might come up a little bit by the ears. You can lock out the elbows if you want to, creating a little bit more spaciousness in the lower back and lengthening the side waists. And keep returning to your breath. Allow this to be the soundtrack of your practice. Soothing the mind, focusing the mind. Keep the tailbone down as you pick up the right foot, thread the needle. Right foot can be floppy, left foot is flexed. And create a little bit of resistance here, a little bit of good tension as you press the thigh forward into your interlaced hands. Rock yourself over to the left, hover, right hip bone comes off the floor. Notice how the sensation of stretch changes. Rock yourself back through to the center and over to the right. Little hobble, you might even fall over. Back through to the center, hugging your right thigh in a little bit more. Notice how the pelvis rotates as you do this. And then as you bring your tailbone back to the floor, stretch your right leg up, spread the toes, 3 corners of your foot pressing up towards the ceiling. And again, notice the natural orientation of your toes here. It might be different on this leg to the other. Our hip joints are as unique as our faces, and one may be set very differently to the other. Just release the interlace, take the hands over the left knee, take the ankle off the thigh, lower your right leg down, hugging the left thigh in. And then hugging both knees towards you. Take the hands behind the backs of the thighs. Rock yourself up to seated and spin the shins around here so we'll come onto our hands and knees into a tabletop. Excellent. Take the hands underneath the shoulders. Bring your knees and inner ankle bones to touch. Bring a little bit more tone to the front of the body and feel the back body spreading. A little bit of buoyancy to the back of the heart. Pick up your right toes so the knee stays on the floor. Foot is pointed and then flex the toes back so you've got this half pointed, half flexed foot. And so you inhale, press the ball of the foot up towards the ceiling, keeping the knee angling down and the pelvic bones level, equal to the floor. Exhale, bring your knee forward, lift the navel and round. Inhaling, maybe the inner thighs brush past one another. Exhale, lift the navel as you draw the knee forward. Inhaling. It's time we're going to fly the right knee out to the side and gracefully, quietly step the foot outside of your mat. So the toes and the fingers are aligned and that right foot is parallel, it's pointing straight forward. Lift your tailbone a little bit and then start to rotate around in one direction. Just passing from point to point, from hand, to foot, to shin. And then in the opposite direction, you can let the elbows be soft. Coming back to the center, lift your tailbone, start to hinge back, soften the elbows. Keep your toes flat on the floor, so we're activating all three arches of your feet here. Quite a strong hamstring stretch. You probably feel we're in the real middle of the hamstring here. And then coming back up. Circle these right toes around so the toes are in line with your sit bone. Walk the hands back so they're directly underneath your shoulders. Be careful if you're on a blanket that you don't slip here. And then pick up your left shin. Root down through your arm bones. It's a good stress through the bones here. Helping to create more of those cells to keep the bone matrix strong. And then stretch your left toes away as you lengthen the heart forward into your plank. Lower knees, chest and chin as you exhale. Inhale, glide through, lengthen your toes. Exhale, lift your navel and come to sit back into the child's pose. A couple of breaths here. If your shoulder heads are up by the ears, can you draw the arm bones back, connecting them to the mid-spine? Make your hands feel 10 times bigger. Coming up onto hands and knees, bring the shins together, walk the wrists underneath the shoulders. Picking up your left toes so the knee stays on the floor for a moment. Flex the toes back so you've got that half pointed, half flexed foot. Press the ball of the foot up towards the ceiling. Knee stays angling down. Inhale. Exhale, bring it forward. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhale, fly the knee out to the side. Step the foot gracefully outside of your mat, toes and fingers aligned. Lift your tailbone and then start to rotate around your four columns. Juicing up the joints. And finding your hasta bandha here, so super gluing the hands to the floor. Opposite direction. So as you root around the outer rim of each palm, there's a little bit of space between the center of the palms and the floor. So your hands are like little suction pads here. Come back to the center, lift your tailbone, start to hinge back, soften the elbows. Keep the whole of that left foot on the floor so you can have a look at that foot and see the arches engaging. Pada bandha. Coming back up. Circling these left toes around, bring the toes in line with your sit bone. You might need to walk your hands back so they're directly underneath the shoulders. Vertically press down to the arm bones, right shin floats off, thigh to belly. The inner eyes of your elbows are turning to face one another, and there might be a little bit of a softness there. Stretch your right toes back into a high plank. Extend through the spine. Lower knees, chest and chin as you exhale. Inhale, glide through. Exhale, lift your navel. Tuck your toes this time and float yourself up and back into your first downward facing dog. You've got a blanket on your mat. You might want to take it out of the way. Whatever you need here, so if there's some movement necessary in the knees, pedaling the legs, rolling the hips, and softening the knees and walking your hands back towards your feet. Just letting yourself hang over your legs. Crown of the head falls towards the floor. Feet are hip distance apart. And coming up onto the tips of your fingers, if you aren't already. Lengthen your heart forward. Keep the face softening back. As you exhale, imagine you were trying to hook your ribcage over your knees. There's a lengthening into the lower back. One more time. Inhaling, heart extends forward into space. Exhale, lift the navel, hook the ribcage over your knees as you fold. And then looking forward along your mat, walk your hands back into your downward facing dog. Okay, let's bring the feet together so the big toe joints are touching. Fan out the toes, soften the heels towards the floor, and lengthen the fronts of your thighs upwards from your knees to your hip bones. And with the knees glued together, same action, pick up your right toes, heel to sit bone, find that half pointed, half flexed foot, and hold in this shape. So we're going to stay in a down dog rather than coming into a plank. Press the ball of the foot up towards the ceiling, so you inhale. Exhale, simply bring the knee forward, keeping your hips lifted. So nothing much changes, just the movement of the leg. Inhaling, pressing the ball of the foot up towards the sky. Exhale, bringing the knee forward. Inhaling, fly the right knee out to the side. Step the foot to the outside of your right hand, but take it onto your mat. So you want to take the right fingertips in a little bit. Come onto the tips of the fingers and root down to the legs. So there's a sense of buoyancy to the hips, and you could take your fingertips off the floor so you're firmly grounded and rooted and strong in the legs. Float your right arm up as you inhale, looking up towards the thumb. Exhale, float the fingertips back down inside of the foot. Maybe a little hamstring stretch here, doesn't have to be huge. Keeping the toes long, notice the metatarsals lifting, and press down to your front big toe joint, right big toe joint. Spine is extended. Rebend your right knee. Spring the left foot to the outside of the left hand. So your feet are mat width. Let yourself hang here, taking a hold of the elbows. Maybe framing the head, bending your knees, reach your forearms forward, still holding onto the elbows. So if you can feel that flat back, so shoulders and hips aligned, lifting the forearms, and then press down into the heels. Notice how that fires up all the muscles around the glutes, tops of your thighs. Good, and then letting yourself hang once again. Lifting the sit bones towards the sky. Releasing the elbows. Take the fingertips onto the floor, extend the heart a little bit. And then plant the palms down, bend the knees, and see if you could hop back 3 times along the outer edges of your mat. into your down dog. So wide-legged down dog, lifting the hips, spreading the shoulder blades, a little bit of buoyancy to the back of the heart, and then bending the knees a little bit and hopping the feet together. Spread the toes, sink the heels, thighs draw upwards, knees together, pick up your left toes, heel to sit bone, find that half pointed, half flexed foot. Press the ball of the foot up towards the sky, knee stays angling down, inhale. Exhale, bring the knee forward, navel lifts, hold the shape of your down dog. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhale, fly the knee out to the side, step the foot outside of your left hand, move the left hand in so the foot can be on the mat. Come onto the tips of the fingers and extend the heart. Root down to the feet so you could float the fingertips off the floor. And float your left arm up into your twist, maybe looking up towards the thumb. Diving the fingertips back inside of the foot. And then maybe a little hamstring stretch here as you lay your belly over your thigh. Feel where your hips are in space. And then re-bending your left knee. Glide the back foot to the outside, so feet are mat width once again. Bend your knees, open your arms into an aeroplane position. So spine is flat. Press the heels down and away from one another once again. If you wiggle your thumbs, you can just see them in your peripheral vision without having to look to the sides. If not, bring your hands a little bit further forward. And then reach around, interlace the hands behind you. Lift the knuckles off the spine. Lift your sit bones and fold. If the shoulders feel a little stiff this evening, keep the elbows open, the palms of the hands open. So it's a wider, more rounded shape to your arms behind you. Drop your thumbs onto your sacrum, come up about halfway, and release the fingertips to the floor in front of you. Bend your knees, plant the palms down, and maybe 3 little bunny hops again along the outer edges of your mat into a wide-legged down dog, lifting the hips. And then bending the knees and just hopping the feet together again. Sinking the heels to the earth. Picking up your right toes. Press the ball of the foot up towards the sky as you inhale. Exhale, bring the knee forward. Inhaling, this time you're going to look forward. Spill your gaze along the mat as if you could see those toes arriving over the crown of the head. If you want a little extra, you could take a little press up and then push back. And then bend the knee through and step the foot in between the hands. So it's centered this time. Push down to the feet, float your arms forward and up, high lunge. Melt the shoulders, wrap the left side of your body forward. Take the back heel to the floor, open up into your warrior two. Armpits, elbows, palms face up towards the sky, elbows bend. Take an inhale, arms come up by your ears as your leg straightens. As you exhale, descend vertically, palms down, looking over your right hand. Inhaling, coming up, sucking up through the inner seam of your body. Exhale, descend, right pelvic bone lifts up a little bit. One more time. Inhaling. Exhaling. Turn the armpits, elbows, palms up once again. Straighten the legs, swinging the hips back a little bit. Reach out as you inhale without locking out that right knee. Exhale, bring the shoulders back. 2 more times. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhale, exhale, float the hand either onto the shin or hand, back of the hand in front of the shin. And just wiggling out through the spine from the base through to the crown of the head. You can check that the chin isn't lifted, so the energy isn't moving into the cerebral cortex. Soften it down so you're a little bit more internal in your focus. This might be enough. You could take the right arm over by the cheek, left arm over by the cheek, and maybe right arm across if you wanted. And then using both legs to come all the way back up. Spin your feet around towards the left. So you're going to be in a warrior two with the left knee bent, shoulders over the hips. Turn the armpits, elbows, palms up. Take an inhale, rise up, look towards the center. As you exhale, descend vertically, looking over your left fingers. Inhaling. Exhale. Left pelvic bone lifts as you descend. Inhale. Exhaling. Straighten up that front knee as you turn the palms up. Swing the hips back. Feel that external rotation in your left thigh. A little rotation forward in your right hip. Reach out as you inhale. Exhale. And that orientation is going to be different for all of you. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale, long underneath side of the body. Let the hand fall onto the shin or back of the hand in front of the shin. And bring a little bit of movement and malleability into the spine as you wiggle out here. Keep the neck nice and fluid, breathing. This might be where you want to stay, or the right arm comes over by the cheek. Lifting the cheek towards the upper arm. Left arm may want to reach across. And then coming all the way up, rebending your left knee this time. Sweep this right arm down by your hip. Carry yourself up into a high lunge. Taking the hands to the floor and stepping back with your left toes into a down dog with the feet together. So to finish this sequence, we're going to be facing the back of the mat or the opposite shorter edge of the mat. Pick up your left toes. Press the ball of the foot up towards the ceiling as you inhale. Exhale, bring the knee forward towards the navel just once this time. Press the ball of the foot up. Spin your gaze along the earth. Lift out the shoulders. Draw the shoulder blades up the back. Imagine those toes are traveling over the crown of your head. Maybe a little press up. And then push back up. And then stepping the foot forward in between the hands. Gliding your back foot forward to fold. Good. Folding over your legs. Great. So now the short edge of your mat is the front of your mat. So if you need to orientate your mat in a different way, if you're completely facing the opposite way around, you've got your back to me totally and it's a strain to see the computer, you can move your mat. That's always a possibility. Or an option. Lifting your gaze, bend your knees a little bit and just hop your feet mat width. That's it. Then we're going to take the right thumb. Imagine there's a line down the center of your mat. Right thumb onto the line, fingers pointing forward. Left thumb on the line, but the fingers pointing back. So if you need to have a little look, you can. Bend the knees. And then the fingers are going to creep in opposite directions away from one another. Leaning your left shoulder blade inside of the knee. And the right arm floats up. Further to this, you could wrap the right arm around the lower back, maybe the left arm underneath the thigh, interlock a finger or two. So it would be a little bit like this from the back. Great, so a little twist here. Quite a big twist actually, looking up towards the sky, different orientation. And then let this go as you bring the fingertips back to the floor. We're going to step back with the right toes, but we're going to take the toes more or less in line with your right sit bone. And then walk your hands to the center, so as you turn your toes forward, just about, hopefully, you've got your heels on the outer edges of your mat. Lift the navel, soften the knees, and let the head fall towards the earth, or the crown of the head fall towards the earth. Maybe the hands walk back a little bit. And lift the inner ankle bones, so you're activating the arches of the feet once again, which is going to fire up the muscles and the inner legs. Good. And then softening the knees, leading with the heart, float your arms out to the sides to come up. So you've seen a starfish shape here, great. Take an inhale as you reach outwards. As you exhale, twist towards the right, left hand comes to the floor, fingers point the same way as you're turning, and you're looking down, so that's exhale. Inhale, turn the shoulder, bring the top arm over by the cheek, maybe look up. So arm to cheek. Reach up as you exhale, up towards the sky, and then as you inhale, use both legs to come back up. So that's our movement. Exhale, twist the other way, looking down, fingertips turn the same way as you're twisting. Inhale, turn the shoulder, arm comes over by the cheek, looking up. Exhale, reaching up, and inhaling, coming back up into your starfish shape. Take the hands onto the outer thighs and just suck up the hips a little bit, and then slide the hands down the front of those outer edges of your legs. Take the thumbs to the inner ankle bones, so you can just manually lift up those ankle bones a little bit. Right, and then releasing the fingertips to the floor. Walk yourself around towards the right foot, so the outer foot is on the outer edge of the mat, and spring your left foot to the outside, so feet to mat width once again. So we're going to go the other way, bend the knees, left thumb on an imaginary or midline of your mat if you have a design there. Left thumb also, so we're on a line, but sorry, right thumb. And the fingers, right fingers are pointing away from you. So you're going to wiggle your fingers in opposite directions as if they were trying to escape one another. Lean your right shoulder blade inside your right knee. Raise your left arm up. So just various stages, and you can stop wherever you're comfortable. Maybe left arm comes around, right arm comes underneath the thigh, and you can interlock a finger or two, lifting that left collarbone as you breathe. Where is the weight between the feet? So can you balance the weight a little bit more possibly? Great, and then as you release yourself out of this, take the fingertips back to the earth. Step back with your left toes and take the toes, so you can see the toes moving around in line with your left sit bone. So that when you walk yourself through to the center and turn the toes in, more or less the heels are on the back edge of your mat here. And just adjust the width of your feet if you feel that they're too far apart and you're losing your stability, or too close and you're a little bit too high. And lead with your heart, floating your arms out to the sides. Similar here, but slightly different. Bend your left knee, and as you exhale, fingers turn all the way around. So right hand comes to the inside of the foot, little finger edge of the hand towards the arch. Reach up towards that left thumb, looking up, breathing here. And pushing into both feet to float the arms up as you inhale. Bend your right knee, fingers sweep inside of the foot, little finger edge of the hand to the inside of the foot as you reach up. A couple of breaths. And sweeping the arms back up. Exhale, one breath more movement perhaps this time. So right hand comes inside, knee bends. Maybe as you inhale, you can begin to straighten that leg a little bit. Exhale, re-bend the knee, and inhale, sweep the arms out. Exhale, right knee bends, left little finger comes inside. Maybe straighten the leg a little bit or a lot as you inhale. Exhaling, and inhaling, coming back up. Lovely, hands onto the outer hips. Sucking up and then sliding the hands down the fronts or the outsides of the legs. Good. Hands to the floor. Maybe you're going to wiggle your feet a little bit wider. Not too far that you've lost your stability. Some of you might want to come down onto your forearms or even bring the crown of the head to the floor and cup the back of the skull. So you want to make sure if the head is on the floor that it's on your mat and you're not going to slip away from you. If you've made it this far and you want to lift the navel, so the forearms are on the floor, lift out of the shoulders, create a nice framework for your neck there. Don't go any further, please, if you feel your legs are slipping away from you or your neck is not comfortable or your head is not on the floor. Or maybe you're going to lift your heels, scoop up the belly, as if the legs were going to flow out to the sides and up, and then release them down. You could try that 2 more times. Support your head and neck through the framework of your arms. And then when you're ready, make your way a little bit back. Wiggle the feet a little bit closer together. Bending your knees and hop the feet together and come and sit all the way down. Bring the hands to the heart in prayer as you drop your knees. Interlace your fingers. So knees not all the way, so thighs are 90-degree angle. Interlace the fingers, point your first 2 fingers and reach this variation of Kali Mudra up towards the sky, melting the shoulders. Imagine that you were leaning on the wall behind you and that you could see out of the back of your body. Separate the knees and come forward barely inside of the thighs, reaching forward, maybe keeping your upper arms lifted, fanning out the toes. Of course, take the hands to the floor if you need to, any variation of Malasana. And then squeezing the knees together and pointing the fingers back up towards the sky. Melting the shoulders. Wonderful. Bring the hands back to the heart in prayer. Take the fingertips to the floor. Lift your heels high so you can curl yourself into a little ball, cheeks to knees. And then lifting your sit bones towards the sky, maybe high onto the toes still. Softening the heels to the floor, and then wrapping the forearms around the backs of the calf muscles, squeezing the elbows in. So just creating a little sandwich here, maybe tucking the chin in slightly, forehead towards the shins. Releasing this, and just taking your fingertips around towards the right, and hopping your feet so you're facing the short edge of your mat once again. So this is where you might want your brick if you have one handy, and you might want a blanket handy also if you need some padding for a pigeon pose. So I'm just going to have that a little bit ready. And your block can be on its mid-level or its highest level, just to the right of your right little toe. Knees are glued together. Pick up your left foot, a little bit like we've been doing. Reach around with your left hand. First stage, right hand is on the brick or on the floor. Next stage, heel stays to sit bone. You're just going to angle the knee back. So pelvic bones are still square. Further to this, you could press the foot into the hand. So it's like a little Natarajasana, but with the hand on the floor. It's quite a big Natarajasana. Francis pose. And then bring the knees together. Loose the brick for a moment as you take the fingertips to the floor. And step back with your left toes into your lunge. Plant the palms down and sweep the right leg up behind you. Bring your heel to your sit bone So again, the pelvic bones are still square for now. Soften the elbows. Lift the knee out to the side and maybe curl the right toes over to the left. Reverse pigeon. And soften that right shoulder blade down. Coming forward here, knee to navel, and then take the knee slightly out towards the right. So you're going to be in a pigeon. Lower the back knee down. Keep the back toes tucked. It's quite high in the hips. Think of pulling your front shin and back knee towards one another. So you get that little upward lift. Right hand might want to come onto the thigh, left hand onto the hip. You're drawing your right thigh bone back and your left hip forward. So this is spiraling upwards through the spine. The legs are working really quite strongly. And then let's let that soften. Fingertips come to the floor. Maybe lift the back knee and swivel that foot away a little bit more. Lower the back foot. If your pigeon isn't comfortable, you can come onto the back. Just show you. And if there's a wall handy, maybe you could take this variation of square pose against the wall. That's an option. Or we're coming maybe a little bit further down into the pigeon, coming onto the forearms. Or resting the forehead on the backs of the hands. And just have a sense where your hips are behind you. It's easy just to let the hips kind of default over to a place where it's kind of easier to rest, but slightly out of alignment. And also sometimes a pose where we lose our presence. So can we be fascinated by what is, rather than what is not? And what is right now is the myriad of sensations that you may be experiencing in your body if you're present. Thoughts also. Breath. Let's slowly start to make our way out of this. So just walking the hands back towards you. You're going to roll onto your right sit bone and swing the left leg around. Possibly a double pigeon here. So flexing the foot, ankle onto the knee. Don't worry if there's a massive gap like mine. Some of you may have shin on top of shin. And if you wanted to make it a little softer, you could pull that bottom heel in a little bit rather than having it directly underneath the knee. Fingertips to the floor, find the uplift through the spine. And then we could do a little twist here. So hand into the, left hand into the heel, right thumb behind. Floating out of this, and maybe taking the shin onto the floor into a cross-legged position, hands to the heart in prayer, hinging forward, elbows onto knees, lengthening through the sides of the body through to the tips of the ears. If you wanted to go further, you could hook the elbows over the shins, or maybe even bring the forearms to the floor. And the possibility to take the tips of your thumbs just into those two little pressure points underneath the eyebrows, just either side of the bridge of the nose. You don't want to press too hard, but it might feel quite lovely. Let's begin to make our way back up, thumbs to the heart. And any way back into your down dog, so you might be pulling the feet underneath you, flipping over your knees, or spinning your shins around and stepping back. Take your feet and hands as wide as your mat. They'll sway with the hips. Diagonally from the navel, from one shoulder blade to the opposite hip. Come to the center, little bends to the knees and hop the feet together. Lift your tailbone once again. And just walking your feet forward towards the front of the mat. Feet together. Take your brick and place it just in front of your left little toe there. If you want a brick, you might want to take the hand onto the floor. Glue the knees, pick up your right toes, reach around, take a hold of the right foot. First stage. Second stage, heel stays glued towards the sit bone, and you just reach your knee towards the wall behind you. Third stage, press the foot into the hand, open up the knee joint, lift out of that left shoulder, lift to the center of your armpit. And then gluing the knees together, loose the brick, take the fingertips to the floor, step back with your right toes into your lunge. Walk the hands back so you can sweep your left leg up behind you. Hips are square still to begin with, heel to sit bone. Lift the knee out to the side and then curl the toes over towards the right. Reverse pigeon. Knee to the navel, sweep the left shin to the floor, perhaps knees a little bit wider than the hips, and lower the back knee down, so you're going to be quite high in the hips here. Walk the hands back a little bit and pull the front shin and back knee towards one another. So it creates this upward spiral through the spine. It's quite strong, hard work for the legs. Left hand onto the thigh, right hand onto the hip. Further drawing your left thigh up towards the socket and the right hip slightly forward. Just take a soft gaze along the horizon. And taking the hands to the floor. Lift your back knees. As you slide the back toes away, you might get a little bit more length through the hip flexor. Lower the thigh, knee, flatten the foot. Feel where your hips are in space behind you. And you could come down onto your forearms or stay upright. Even make your way down onto your hands. And you might be noticing that the heel presses into a part of your lower belly. Breathing here, spreading the shoulder blades. And making this an opportunity to become even more present rather than zoning out. As you start to come up out of this pose, roll yourself onto the left sit bone and swing your right leg around. Perhaps the ankle comes onto the top of the knee. Be careful not to sickle the foot here. You could draw the other foot in a little bit more if you wanted to. Take the fingertips onto the earth, root down to rise, maybe really different on one side to the other. Little twist if you wanted, so right hand to the inner heel or inner arch of the foot, left thumb behind you. And just a little wiggle here to encourage the organs and the viscera of the body into the twist. So you're not trying to twist against them unmovable core. And floating yourself back to the front. Front shin can come to the floor. Hands into prayer position. Hinging forwards, and maybe elbows come onto the knees or the shins. Find that length through the sides of your body. And maybe the elbows hook over the shins or come to the floor. Tips of your thumbs perhaps in those two little pressure points. It's underneath the occipital bones either side of the bridge of your nose. Slowly coming out of this, thumbs to the heart. Great. And however you wish to make your way into the last downward facing dog, stretching out, maybe wide, just releasing your knees, swaying your hips from side to side. Lovely, and then lowering your knees wide on your mat, bring the big toes to touch. Come and sit down into a child's pose. And if you wanted to try this, you may want a blanket for your knees, and you can just have a little look if you want to. I'm going to come over, and the feet come off the floor, pelvis comes to the floor. I'm just going to rest the forehead on the backs of the hands. Can be rather lovely, but fairly powerful. Now feel the soles of the feet melting in towards one another, lifting the toes a little bit, but keeping the heels and ankles dropping, so the feet are in a prayer position. And feeling the inner thighs lengthening from groin through to inner knee. Just taking a few moments here if it's not too strong. If you find yourself trying to hold yourself up here, protecting your groins in any way, you may want to come out, or whenever you feel you need to. Just breathing into the belly. When you're ready, take your hands underneath your shoulders, or maybe a little bit further back, pushing yourself up here. And bring the knees in a little bit. Drop back down into a child's pose. Extending your arms out in front of you, popping up onto hands and knees, maybe lifting the feet, cross the ankles, doesn't matter which one, and make a transition over onto your sit bones. Coming towards the front of your mat and releasing down onto the earth. Let's draw both knees towards the chest. Taking the knees wide and making that same little shelf that you did for both legs this time, elbows on the floor, Hands are supporting underneath the thighs or the knees. Flex your feet. And stretch both legs out as you inhale. Exhale, heels to sit bones. 2 more times. Inhaling, keeping the tailbone down. Exhale. Inhaling. Exhaling. Reaching inside of the knees. You can take a hold of your big toe joints, outer feet, inner feet, shins. But keep your shoulder blades plugged down and your tailbone heavy, chin towards the chest. So if that means holding further down the shins, just be content with that. Take a little rock from side to side. Massaging the mid-back. If you find that one knee comes to the floor and then the other, then perhaps you're going to straighten out the opposite legs. If the right knee comes to the floor, left leg extends, and vice versa. So just a little playful, happy baby. Great. Coming into happy baby, stillness, heels towards the sit bones. Draw the knees together and release the feet to the floor. Wonderful. Let's tuck the left toes behind the right heel. So start with the feet together and let the left knee drop out to the side. As you might feel this opening in through the groin. If you wanted to increase the sensation there, you might want to squeeze the left glute, but keep the left thigh bone releasing down, knee lengthening forward. And then let the glute release. Angling the left thigh in so it's more vertically orientated, so you can wiggle the foot across. Take a hold of the big toe joint, left big toe joint with the right hand. Pause here. Draw your right knee towards your chest and the left hand comes over the top. Try to keep the knee pointing towards the cheek. So all of these stages are really lovely. You can pause at any one, you can stay here if you're liking this one. This is where you want to be. Start to half open the leg if you're going to take this into a twist. So there's still a bend in the knee. And support this leg with your left hand as it comes over. So if you had a block, you could place a brick even. Your brick underneath the ankle. Whichever level. Switch the hand over to the top, release the left shoulder blade. You might need to release the bottom hook there with hand onto big toe joints, the bind. Spreading across the shoulder blades, heart space is opening. Rolling onto your back again. And coming back the way we came. So right foot comes to the floor, left foot comes to the floor. Take a moment to pause. Feet together. Tuck your right toes behind the left heel. Drop the right knee to the floor. So there's a lengthening to the inner leg, inner seam of the leg. If you want more intensity, squeeze your right glute, but keep the knee dropping and lengthening forward. Just kind of creep your right foot over to the left, so your right knee moves inwards and that thigh bone is a little bit more vertically orientated. Take a hold of the big toe joint with your left hand. And if you had to move the shoulders to capture hold of it, just square them again. And if you can't hold it, that's fine. Left knee towards the cheek, right hand over the knee. Reach the tailbone forward and down. This is quite a nice stage just to pause at. Start to half open that leg. And the leg's going to come across. You can make a shelf with this hand to support it as it comes over. You might take your ankle onto a brick or a block, or if there's a wall there, you can place your foot there. Spread the shoulder blades. It becomes quite a nice little twist for the upper body. And just notice where you can soften, where you can let go. Lovely. And when you're ready, rolling onto your back, take the left foot to the floor, take your right foot to the floor. Just bring your spine in the center of your mat. Perhaps drop your knees out just for the last time, Baddha Konasana. Maybe a last little massage into the belly with the hands. Moving from the right lower corner of your abdomen up the right side, cross underneath the belly and down the left side. And then drawing your knees towards one another, maybe hugging them in if that's what you feel you need. Anything else that you might need. Before finding your comfortable Shavasana, whatever that is for you this evening. Just lengthening your limbs away from the sockets. Perhaps taking a few conscious breaths as you settle. And giving yourself these last few minutes to rest in the self, with the self.